The last push. So this was the story broken by Brent Costello on Monday night in Tasmania. That's the front page of the Mercury today. PM Albanese set to turn our dreams of AFL team into a reality. If you go back to February 2020, Geordie, the Tassie Task Force published their red letter report, and the theme of it, this would be the last time that Tasmania put itself forward. They had been treated in a condescending manner and brushed aside previously. This is the last moment. It spoke of the stadium at Macquarie Point and it referenced it as a silver bullet. The task force said it had no right to either ask or recommend this, given the amount of public money that would be required. But it was a concept that contained the best of Adelaide Oval, the quality of the geography and the beating heart of a team and a sport. The state government at the time wasn't prepared to entertain that. They had different ideas for Macquarie Point, but progressively that moved to the point where the Tasmanian government, with initial full political support that has fractured as time had gone along, they're going to provide half of the funding. It required the federal government to stump up between $240 and $270 million to make it a possibility. And that possibility, we believe on Saturday, with the Prime Minister heading for Hobart, will become a reality.
Yeah, it seems like it was the most thought out and vocal pitch that they've ever made to get a team in Tasmania, and you know, one of ours, Nick Rewalt, was heavily involved in that and quite openly about how and what it would mean to Tasmania. I've been fortunate enough to play in both Launceston and Hobart and do community camps in and around and all over Tasmania. It is a football mad state, so I think it's a really good achievement. They've clearly come well prepared and they've done all their due diligence and what it would look like, how much it would cost, all that type of thing. So when and if it does on Saturday get approved and get that government funding, it seemed like that was the gap that needed to be bridged to then go forward and say, hey, this is a reality.
So the Prime Minister was being asked about Macquarie Point in the stadium today. He was pretty eager not to provide any spoilers to the big announcement that's coming.
Bear in mind, this site will connect the city of Hobart with the Derwent River. Hobart is an extraordinarily beautiful city, but at the moment, Macquarie Point sits there as a bit of an eyesore. It's completely underutilised, and what I've said is that if we can use that site for recreational activity, for housing, for private sector investment, for urban redevelopment, in order to improve economic activity in Tasmania, in order to create jobs, both during construction but also in the longer term, by having a centre that can bring jobs and events to Tasmania, then that would be a positive thing.
So everything other than the sporting side of it, because you don't want spoilers on your way to the announcement. This is a Prime Minister that knows sport. It's a Prime Minister that loves sport. The AFL sensed its once-in-a-lifetime opportunity to use the licence as the bargaining chip to get the best deal imaginable. And if this is the way that it lands, is the McLaughlin administration will have achieved the best deal imaginable for Tasmania. There have been various stages, I think, during this process and during this debate where there has been awful mainland conceit that has been attached to this, and there have been those who have remained small-minded and could only see their own interests rather than the visionary possibilities, and that reality that the AFL can never be complete without a Tasmanian team. So you can either leave that vacancy for eternity or you can make the move to fill it now. Interrupted by the pandemic and yet still on the cusp of being achieved. It will stand as, it's going to be a monumental moment. Two steps. First, the federal government has to make its announcement and then the presidents have to vote. It would take a 2/3 majority to vote against Tasmania to roll the AFL.
Have you got a gut feel?
No, this needs to be a unanimous vote.
Yeah.
This needs to be a moment to put all the small-mindedness and the pettiness and what's it going to do to our lists and our club aside and go, no, this is the right thing for the competition. Most of these presidents won't be in these positions when this team plays its first game. So they should ask themselves, who do we represent walking, or when we're canvassed, or if we do have a formal meeting? They represent the greater interests of football, and football needs Tasmania in as the 19th licence. They should formally and stirringly and unanimously vote Tasmania into existence.
Yeah, or they better have a really good excuse to say
and
no.
If there are those who want to say no, they should do it very publicly so that they can stand to be judged now and they can stand to be judged by history.
Yeah, I just think that I'm probably one of those narrow-minded, because I've got no knowledge of how it unfolds and what's gone into it and what it could potentially be. I just don't have that brain capacity, Jared, to actually think about it like that. But I think from a player point of view, and just some players have been asked whether they would play down there. There's been a big shift in drafting people from the local state, so we've had an abundance of Tassie talent that's come into our league and performed really well. But also think, you know, once you hit 23, 24, 25, I think there is a shift in Geelong. Use Geelong as one of those destinations. Players like to go back to somewhere where it's a little bit slow-paced. They're a little bit out of the football bubble. The cost of living isn't as expensive, so it could be attractive for those players wanting to seek a bit of a quieter lifestyle.
It is a football culture. If the team is set up right, with the right people from the start, the facilities, and this is where the stadium is the visionary piece. It can be transformative. We've seen that in the redevelopment of Adelaide Oval. We've seen it at Optus Stadium in Perth. If that stadium is to be full for every home game that the Devils play, it becomes a far more attractive prospect than being on the outer rim, which the two recent expansion teams have been on the outer rim of football. So I do think this is a different proposition. That is a spectacular representation of a city and a state.
Yeah, you're right. It has to be connected to the CBD and easily accessible by that as well. And I think, I mean, the basketball side, we spoke off there a little bit about the basketball side, what that's done to Tasmania and the vibe and the sport-loving state that it is extraordinary.
I have one other element on the timeline. So I'm a big believer in this. I'm a huge supporter of Tasmania. They shouldn't start until they can open in that stadium.
Yeah.
So if that's, I know the notional date has been 2028. If the stadium's not going to be ready to 2029, don't enter under construction.
Yeah. No.
Enter with a historic bang in that place and just wait there. Think about how long the wait has been. Just wait to arrive fully formed. Don't come in partially and a little bit here and a little bit there. This is our stadium. This is our moment in history. Just bide your time and link it up with when the stadium will be ready.
Yep, I couldn't agree more. I think there's been a lot of important decisions. I think that would be probably the most important when they're ready, when the stadium is open. That's when you start, and then it's the importance of the positions you fill. I think we've seen historically, if you don't get those positions right and you don't get the players in that could actually create the culture and the right people, you could suffer for years to come. So they are so important, those decisions, after everything has been done.
So this announcement will quickly see the end of Gil McLachlan's leadership of the AFL. This is why he's still in the job, to pin this down, to get the deal finished and announced by the federal government ahead of the budget. It will quickly lead to the succession. I noticed that it has been reported tonight that Andrew Dillon will be the next AFL chief executive. He has been the favourite for about 6 months' time. It's gone through various fluctuations. If that turns out to be the case, I wouldn't be the least bit surprised. So, big picture, really blue sky thinking, historic moment coming. And if it does happen on Saturday, it'll be huge. And I hope the presidents move quickly to ratify it and send us on our way into the future.